Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Trailblazers Cafe. I'm Nancy Fox, the Business Fox, and I am a business, career, and life transformation coach. And I've been working with professionals in a variety of professions over the last 15 plus years. And this series is all about really, over the last couple of years, the entire world has changed. Everything's gone topsy-turvy. And the professional world, there's a lot of change. There are a lot of changes going on there. This series is all about supporting and informing and inspiring professionals to see that there are so many new opportunities and to break free of the old school thinking and break free of old traditional ways, that there are new trails being blazed by a lot of people. And I want to share that with you guys. There are some, I've had the fortune of interviewing some amazing guests in some very traditional professions who are doing very untraditional things. And today I have a very, very special guest. I'm so excited to speak with her. Her name is Dr. Maiysha Clairborne, and she's in Atlanta, Georgia. She's an M.D, but she's a whole lot more than that. So Maiysha, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's just so great to be with you, and I'm excited to have this conversation.
There's so much to dive into. I don't even know where to start first. So first of all, like, you're an MD. What was your training as a physician in? What was your specialization?
I am trained in family medicine. So that's my specialized training. And then I further specialize in integrative medicine, which for those who don't know is the marriage of the Western medicine with some would call non-traditional, but we just call, the more holistic side of medicine.
Which is now becoming so traditional, right? I mean, over time, we've gotten a lot more embracing of it. So the first thing is, and this really was already blazing a trail, you're a woman, not so easy, a woman of color, not so easy, going into a very traditional profession. What made you decide to do that? And what were some of the hurdles you had to overcome?
Yeah, well, so it's an interesting story how I decided to become a doctor. There wasn't some like sentinel event like some of my colleagues. I was doing a writing assignment and in the 8th grade, and I wrote to Emory University, their medical school, and I got a response. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that means I'm going to medical school. They were like, oh, we'd be happy to show you our campus. And I was like, oh, I guess that means I'm going to medical school. Like, that's how I decided. Now, it probably doesn't hurt that my dad is a retired OBGYN and my mom's a retired dentist. I mean, that may have had a little bit of influence, but that was when the decision was made.
So it wasn't so foreign to you, and it wasn't so far into the world that you came out of, right?
Correct. But, as I was there wasn't a lot of challenges coming up in high school, but when I went to college, I did end up going to Emory undergraduate. And as I was applying to medical school that last year, I came across a few people who were supposed to be mentors who told me, say they're white male mentors, a Black male mentor, surprisingly, but they were men. And they were like, oh, you should go into nursing, or you should go into research, or you're not going to get into medical school. Like, I was told that several times. And for me, I just decided that, and I thank my mom for this, because she's sort of the original entrepreneur, like paved her own way, that I decided that I was going to forge my own way. Nobody could tell me what I could and could not do.
I think that is, I just want to go, yes, right?
Right.
And the thing that really is just catching me is what the men said to you. Now, the guys who are listening to this, hey guys, listen, this is not a slam on you, but it's almost subconscious. You don't realize that it's even being said or that you're saying it. It comes out because it's been so conditioned into our culture that this is what will be available and easy and viable for the different genders. It's like automatic, right? So to not, and like as a response, it's almost like your automatic response normally could be, oh yeah, they're right. And then, oh, wait a minute, no, not
Right.
so fast, right? So that was the first thing that really had you flaunt the norms, right? I'm not going to listen to what everybody says. I'm going to create my own path. I'm
Mhm.
going to forge my own path. So then what was the experience like in medical school? And did it have any impact on what you're doing today in terms of going a different way?
Yeah, so I ended up choosing a historically Black medical school because having had that experience, I did not want to have to deal with that kind of attitude toward me while I was going through what felt like it was going to be one of the hardest journeys in my career. And medical school, I mean, because it's no joke, it's
No,
challenging, right?
it's killer. It
Oh
is
my
really
goodness.
killer. I know. I've
It's
watched my cousin go just for years. I mean, it's real. I can't even believe what you have to go through to be. And we
yeah.
really need to go like this to you guys, really, seriously. Okay, so you went to which medical school did you go to?
I went to Morehouse School of Medicine, and I chose it because I wanted to be in what felt like a safe space for me during what was going to be a very challenging time. And I stayed in Atlanta. I wanted as little change as possible. And so the next challenge for me was more personal. It was like really learning how to study, learning how to, we're not taught those types of things, right?
No.
So learning how to study and take in all of that information in a way that would have me be successful, right? Because even though I went to a historically Black medical school, as a woman, it's still a male dominated profession. So there was still that hurdle to be able to prove myself as, I don't know, I guess you could say worthy or good enough to run with the boys in a way. But I will say that, where the school I went to was an amazingly safe space for us. And I think that's what really helped to matriculate through
Excellent.
successfully.
And so then when you graduated, and where'd you do your residency?
I did my residency in Orlando. So I left Atlanta, I went down to Orlando to do my family medicine residency, and I chose a very diverse residency program. Um, what I'll say is that during that time, by then I knew that I was going to be taking a different path. I already knew when I went into medical school, my mind works differently. I was already more into that holistic, wanting to get underneath the root cause of disease. And it's just not how we're taught, right? And so I knew going into residency that it was going to be a little bit different. And a lot of my mentors are very evidence-based,
Yeah, they're very
double blind.
they're extremely about just the numbers, the statistics, the science, and that they're
Mhm,
not taking into account the whole psychological aspect and the brain part of it.
mhm.
Yeah, interesting. So, was there a moment when you realized not that you were going to take a different path, because obviously you're sort of built that way already, it was sort of in you that way.
Mhm.
Um, did you have a sense that forging a different kind of a path was going to take something from a character viewpoint that was going to be different?
That's a really good question. Um, I think that I'll share this short bit with you, which is there was a defined time where I knew that I couldn't practice medicine the way it was being delivered at that time in residency.
Why?
And like the 15 minutes,
Oh, yeah.
like that visit, that kind of traditional 15-minute visit. And that time I experienced a very deep depression, and to the point where I almost took my own life. And luckily I did reach out before that happened, and I was able to get help. And but it was the defining moment for me. Like, I can't go into medicine like this. Like, I knew that there was something that had to shift. And so then there was like the view was just different. Like, everything was in order to get out of residency to forge another path that was going to be completely unknown. Right. And that's all that I had in my mind, because I knew that I wouldn't survive it. I would not survive medicine if I had went into it like it is now.
Oh, That is so, you've caught me, you've got me like completely, I don't even know what to say to that. That's how, and that's not really normal for me. So kudos for you for getting the help. Okay, so what is it really about when I say, you clearly have gone in a different direction right now? Tell us what you're doing now.
Right. So I retired after 10 years of having my own private practice in integrative medicine. I've retired. I started coaching docs in burnout. I've transitioned since then. Even look, I've had this is my third career, Nancy. So I've been on a journey. Now what I do is I actually help people to be able to learn the tools of the unconscious mind, to learn the tools of internal language that we can empower ourselves and be at the source of our lives at any given time. And so I teach the tools of neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, timeline therapy, and help other people to learn these so they can impact the world in a much deeper way.
And are you working primarily with physicians or other groups of people? What is your preferred, who's the target audience that you feel like you most want to work with, that's your real focal point right now?
Yeah, originally I was working mostly with physicians. Now I would say that as I've branched into this new realm, I work a lot with entrepreneurs. I do love to work with anyone who's in business for themselves that may be having the stop point, having an imposter syndrome, having confidence issues, and also wants to use this work to impact others as well. So coaches and entrepreneurs are a lot of who I work with. And some of those coaches happen to be doctors, and some of them are in other professions, industries as well.
Given that you spent 10 years, first of all, you spent at least 6 to 8 years studying and getting certified and licensed. And then you had 10 years of integrative practice in your own practice. What made you decide to, after all of that, and you have the title of doctor and the whole world respects that, family and all that. What did it feel like for you to now blaze a different path and go into the non-traditional, non-doctory kind of world? What was the response around you?
Well, so it was scary because it is an unknown. I think that people expect it out of me. It's so funny because as I talk to people who've known me for a long time, they're not surprised at my path. They're like, oh, it's really great, but this is you, you're a trailblazer. And I never saw myself as that, right? I just did what I did as I was called to it. So for me, to step out of clinical medicine, it was the next logical step I kind of got bored with seeing one patient. After a while, even with integrative medicine, how interesting it is, there's only so many things you're going to see before you're seeing the same things over and over again. Yeah. So I was like, well, the next challenge and the next level of impact was doctors.
Right.
And after that, I think I just got called into this next level of teaching NLP and hypnosis. And actually, I do a little bit of work also in the diversity space as well. So I got called into that in 2020 with all of the tragedy that happened there. And so, I think I just get called to the next space. And I listen to that. And it's the theme is the same. It's healing and empowerment, right? So it's all connected to my internal value of I'm a healer and empowerer.
And that's really what I found as I've been interviewing all the people for this series. Here is what I think is really, we didn't talk about this. I've been coaching for 21 years, 22 years already, before anybody even knew what it was. And I've always been pulled and called on the mindset side of it. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about it so much on the business end of it because it was too woo-woo. Now it's not so woo-woo. Companies are bringing it in. Corporations are including it. They're in, their wellness programs they're very concerned about mental health. So this whole woo-woo thing is not so woo-woo anymore. And that's and yet I think that we see it more and more now with what's happened over the last 2 years. The need is greater, the desire is greater, and the openness to it seems to be more viable. So given all of that, given that this is where you are now, and that you've constantly been reinventing yourself to satisfy your desire for learning, for growing, for developing, for always embracing the next thing that calls to you, do you feel that we have a greater wave of people who are looking to go into new directions now? Or is it just, it's always been that way, and it just, it's always been that way? What do you think that we're in a wave now, or do you think it's always really been there?
I think we're in a wave. I think there's a new movement. I think the pandemic amplified it for sure, because it was almost like when big corporations shut down, people couldn't work, people got laid off, people got really creative. They say necessity is the mother of invention. And so I think that it's a wave, but I think now that people have gotten a taste of what's possible with the autonomy that comes with being creative and starting their own thing, it's becoming a movement. And I think rightfully so. And I also think because the younger generation, like the millennials and beyond, I don't know what they're called after.
Gen Z.
Gen Z, right? Gen Z. The Gen Z. I've heard lots of terms. Gen Z, X, Z generation.
Oh, there's so many letters.
So many letters. I'm like,
the youngins, really.
Youngins, right? Everyone past the millennial generation.
Right.
They have a different mindset, right? There's this, and I think part of it is because like our generation, the X generation has started to wake up and be like, wait a minute, I don't have to stay in a job for 30 years and retire. I can actually change careers. And then we have the younger kids that are seeing us in the middle of that, right? And so they have that mindset younger. And then the kids behind that, what they're seeing is the millennials who are now grown doing their own thing. So all they know is I'm doing my own thing, no matter what that looks like. And I think it's really great. I think sometimes there needs to be some structure to it and some discipline to it. You have to have the grit in order to be able to really make it happen. But I think the mindset is really there.
I totally agree with you. And I think that, so one of the things I'm excited about is having these interviews be an inspiration to people who are on the precipice of, well, should I, shouldn't I? Will it be too hard? Can I do it? That whole, that inner critic. And, I fought that for so long. It's a miracle that I broke out of it, because I came from probably one of the most negative worlds you can imagine. The corporate world was pretty negative. And so I think that what you're sharing is really so powerful on so many fronts, and underscoring the whole thing of choosing your values to be the foundation of what you really want to work on now going forward. And if you want to change in the next whatever numbers of years, you're going to do that too. So so now is a good time for us to have everybody know, okay, where can they find you? Go toot your own horn, say more, and I'll post all the links and everything. But before I have you do that, I'm sorry to do this, one last thing.
Sure.
What is the one kernel, the one pearl of wisdom to encourage other potential trailblazers? What's the one thing they need to know from you, do? What's the piece of advice, that pearl of wisdom, that you would give them to be the trailblazer and have the life that they really want?
I would say the one thing is feel the fear and do it anyway. That's my favorite quote from Jack Canfield's book. Like fear is a normal emotion. You have to evaluate it to see whether is it a real or imagined threat. And usually in these cases, it's more of a perceived than a real. And, just notice it and take the action anyway.
Yeah.
And know that there's no such thing as failure. It's all feedback. It's all feedback.
I love that. I know. Oh, that's so, failure is not failure. It's feedback. I love it. That's a really good one. I'm going to steal that one. I'll quote you, don't worry. So, okay, where can people find you? Share your goodies, your links and all of that. What do you want them to come to you for, and where can they find you?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in that personal transformation, if you're experiencing struggle and you really want to go deeper and do the work personally, with the mind remapping, you can go to drmaiysha.com and schedule a free discovery call with me. If you're interested in learning more about the training, the neurolinguistic programming certification programs, you can go to remapmymind.com, and that'll take you to the training page and allow you to be able to see when the trainings are coming up. If you want to see me on the TEDx stage,
Oh my God, that is
yes,
yeah, girl. All right, love it. What is it?
it's TEDx Asheville coming up February 27th. If if you follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, I'm gonna be posting it all over the place. So we are going to be live streaming in addition to being in person.
Oh, the timing of this is perfect then, right? And are you allowed to share what your topic is or not yet?
Yes. So I'm speaking about constructs and how we get attached to constructs, but the constructs are made up in language. And so if we're going to begin to break down systems of oppression, we have to look at the constructs in our language that continues to uphold these constructs and say something newly.
So fascinating. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to interview you. Thank you for being with me and with us. Dr. Maiysha Clairborne, I am so happy that you were in this conversation, and I know that more is coming. Can't wait to see I can't wait to see your TEDx talk. That's going to be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Nancy. It was a pleasure.